Hi, everyone. Um, Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are right now. Um, I'm really excited about what you just saw, an official countdown to the beginning of our live stream. This is the first time we do this. If you can hear me, please drop a one in the chat room. That's actually a great way to see who's listening and also who can locate the chat room. And that's also an opportunity for me to say hi, Dennis. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Deshawn. Hi, Michael. Hi, Jen. Um, Great. So some of you are still looking for the chat box. My name is Loic Maestracci, and I'm the founder of Music Expo. I was actually told by one of our fellow attendees, Mark Hughes from Nashville, to introduce myself more often because he told me, "Are you the crazy French guy talking at the beginning of those sessions?" It's like you should tell everybody what's your role and what's your name so people know you. So yeah, my name is Loic. If you don't know me, um, and I see some people. What I love about what we do and is actually some of you sometimes drop me an email to say just hi or say Loic, this link it doesn't work, so please keep doing that. Anyway, we're really thank you, Catherine. We love you too. So thank you so much for joining us today. Would love to know where you're dialing from. So just let us know. Maybe if you're a musician or if you're an artist, a manager, another lawyer. But let us know your title or your role. And where you're dialing from. So we get a sense of where you are. And while you do this, I just want to do a shout out to we recently updated our website, musicexpo.co, with all the sessions for June. So make sure you go check it out. Hi, Michael, audio engineer, musician. Michael, where are you dialing from? Let us know. So yeah, if you go check out, Darshan, singer performer from Miami. Sweet. Jen from Sacramento. Hey, Jen. So yeah, go check out. We have next week. We have an amazing speaker joining us. Her name is Payne. You probably know about her now. She is the grandmother of Music Expo. She has been on Music Expo, speaking at Music Expo since 2014, and we're really excited about having her to talk about mastering. And we have a bunch of other sessions. So make sure you go check out all the sessions for the rest of June, all the way to beginning of July. We've actually our first Music Expo in Spanish happening beginning of July. So any Spanish speaking folks there, make sure you go check it out. Anyway, yeah, great. Oh, we have another entertainment lawyer, Jerome Jackson from Miami. So Jerome, we expect you to ask all the tough questions. So today I have an immense pleasure of welcoming Mark Pearson. Mark is an entertainment attorney that we met each other over a year ago. He has spoken to Music Expo San Francisco back in November, and actually was on one of my panels early February for Balance Breakfast Summit here in San Francisco. This is probably one of the last time all of us probably went outside and met with people in person. So Mark, welcome, and how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I think that was one of the last times that I was around a lot of people. It was at the Music Expo back in February, which was fun.
And where are you dialing from?
Well, as most people can probably tell from all the stuff behind me, I'm in San Francisco. Got my Giant stuff and my 49er stuff, and a shameless plug for my good friend Carmen and Agudi. Their album sitting back there. They're also from San Francisco.
Very cool. Very cool.
Right
So
on.
drop some link here. And Catherine's like, Mark.
What's up, Catherine? How are you?
So Mark, thanks for joining us today. So what we're going to do is you're going to talk about, it's interesting. Everybody's been jumping on the live streaming, performers and musicians. I mean, and there's some challenges coming with it. And you wanted to cover that, I'm sure, because you probably hear a lot about it. So you're going to be talking to us about licensing, regulations, and one more thing which I forgot. Licensing regulations.
Licensing regulations, clearances. We're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff. Yeah.
So you have like a little presentation, and then we go
I
into
got a presentation. I got some slides for us to go through.
perfect. So slides, and then of course we, as usual, super approachable. Everybody can ask questions. So please, if you don't know the drill, for those who know, it's going to be a refresher. For those who are new with us this afternoon, make sure to use the Q&A app. Anna, myself, and Mark will be monitoring, and when Mark is ready for questions, we'll throw questions at him. Okay, so make sure you put them in the Q&A chat, the Q&A, and not the chat app. So like that, we can keep track of them in an easy way. So Mark, welcome, and without further ado, take it from here.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you. Music Expo is awesome. I'm so glad that you put this together. And so, and keeping it going online, it's really fantastic. And I know a lot of people are getting great information out of this, especially on the production side. And hopefully today we'll have some decent information for you, especially those of you who are doing live stream events, just so you kind of get an overview of some of the legal issues when you're doing live streaming events, both in terms of content creation, content use, some things to think about regarding monetization, and some things to think about depending upon where you're going to be broadcasting. Are you going to be using most likely a platform service like Mixer or Caffeine or Twitch or Facebook Live or YouTube? Or are you going to be live streaming yourself through your own platform, which there is the ability to do that as well. Although now most people are really utilizing a service, even like what we're doing right now here on Zoom. So we'll talk about some of the issues that come from that as well. And I've got some slides, so I'm going to start now. I'm going to share the slides. So I don't know how that's going to affect you looking at my ugly mug. Hopefully I'll just go to a little box in the corner. But we'll share the slides now. So hopefully everybody should be seeing the slides now. If you're not seeing the slides, drop a comment and let us know. I'm going to make sure that I have my chat function up so that I know that I can see what you guys see. It looks like everybody's dropping the one. Okay, cool. So here's kind of the intro slide. Make sure you know where you're at. As long as it's Thursday, June 4th, and it's 3 o'clock, then we're in the right place. Okay, cool. There's me. I encourage everybody to kind of take a second to maybe drop me a line on Instagram or Facebook or any of the other social media platforms. Twitter, it's Arc Law Group is how you're going to find me. Feel free to add. We put a lot of content out, and so I love to see what everybody else is doing as well. So I will add you back and follow what you guys are doing. Quick note, because I am a lawyer, and so it's important for me to make sure that everybody is aware that the focus of today's discussion is to kind of provide general information. If you have specific questions about any specific legal issues that you're encountering, I encourage you to either message me offline or use the question and answer where it's private and not everybody sees it. I don't want anybody to inadvertently waive their privilege by broadcasting their particular issue to everyone. And also just a reminder that if you do have a specific issue, definitely seek legal counsel over that specific issue, because some of what we go over today, since it's general, may not be fully applicable to everyone's particular situation. And it's really important that if you do have a specific legal issue, that you get the correct guidance. And I just realized my phone number is wrong on there. It's actually 504-2981. So if you call 2982, tell them I said hi, but you won't find me there. My bad right there, 2981. Okay, so let's get right into it. Okay, so just some basic legal issues that go along with live streaming, okay? Live streaming obviously is anytime that you're broadcasting live through the internet. And obviously that's what we're doing right now here on Zoom, but it can also come in many different forms through many different platforms. But the legal issues that go along with live streaming, some of which are very kind of intuitive or oh, of course that's the way it should be, but we still want to mention them anyhow, are things like don't do anything unlawful during your live stream. We've seen issues where people have been prosecuted because of the pranks gone wrong type of situation, because it is documented evidence of whatever you're doing live. And so if you do something that's illegal, or you do something that would get you in trouble, blowing off, firecrackers and lighting someone on fire, something stupid like that, there's now evidence of your having done that, and that can be used against you. So watch out for doing anything that's unlawful while you're doing your live stream. Probably not super impactful here, but there's other unlawful things that are different than the things that you kind of know are wrong, but you do it anyhow because you think it will be fun, and now all of a sudden you have this evidence against you. There's other unlawful things that might come up that we'll talk about as we move forward, that are things that you might not have thought about, that we treat a little bit differently. When I say unlawful actions here, I mean where you actually know that you're doing something that you probably shouldn't be, and something goes wrong, or somebody gets upset about it. Those are the type of things you want to just kind of use some common sense when doing your live streams. Unlawful content. This is where you're using information or content on your live stream that you don't have the rights to. And we're going to dive a lot deeper into that subject as we move along through the program here today, through the workshop, and talking about the content that you put onto your live stream. But there's also the idea that there might be unlawful content in terms of, and we skipping a couple bullet points down, like unlawful locations. Some people that go out and do live streams may be live streaming from a spot where it is prohibited, especially in other countries, that you are not allowed to actually broadcast from that particular location. It might be like a sacred temple or something in Cambodia where you're actually not allowed legally to broadcast from there. And if you do, the broadcast itself could be evidence that's used against you. So just be aware of, we're going to talk more about content, but locations, there's lots of different things that you might end up, or places that you might end up where the actual live stream itself may not be legal to do. Advertising and promotion, a lot of times people are looking to monetize what they're doing on their live stream. Be very careful with individual rights when it comes to advertising and monetization. Individual rights and corporate individual rights, or business individual rights, meaning more like trademark issues, but also using people. To the extent that you use someone and it looks like you're using them in a way that's advertising or promoting a product or a service, and they don't give their permission for that, you can get in trouble. That's why I actually put that album cover for my friend Carmen and Agudi up behind me, is to kind of say, I know Carmen's probably cool with that, and I'm not really using her to promote my legal services, but there could be many situations where you have something in the background of your live stream, and whatever it is, the person who's depicted in that, or the company that's depicted in that, may feel that the use in your background is actually for the purposes of promoting your services or business, and that can get you in trouble. So watch out for that. And then obviously another one that is kind of intuitive is defamation. So don't lie about someone for the purpose of trying to make them look bad or discredit them. Make sure that the things that you talk about are either truthful, or that you have a reason to believe they're truthful, or that if you're saying something that it could be considered defamatory, that you're doing it in a way that nobody would reasonably believe it's defamatory. So if you're a comedian and you say something bad about somebody, nobody's going to believe that the comedian's words are really defamatory. But if you're having a discussion like we are today, that's supposed to be educational in nature, and I were to say something that was untruthful about someone for the purpose of making them look bad, that could be defamatory. Recognize that the criteria for defamation, whether it be libel or slander, the criteria for defamation, number one, is that what you're saying is not truthful. So if what you're saying is the truth, even if it's something horrible about someone, it's not necessarily defamatory. It might be a privacy right issue, but we don't want to drive too far down that rabbit hole. Okay, so let's talk about some other basics when it comes to legal considerations for live stream events. First is whether or not the service that you're going to be using is a private service, so something that you're setting up and hosting and taking care of all of the back end of the actual live stream itself. Probably not the case for most of us, so I'm going to focus mostly on the second form of distribution, and that is through a platform like a YouTube or a Facebook Live or here on Zoom. So most of us are probably not going to be using a private service. So, and again, some of the issues there aren't as nuanced as they are when you're using a platform. So we're going to focus the bulk of our discussion today on platform use, but some of the issues like content rights clearance, monetization, those type of issues that have to do with third-party rights, those are going to be applicable regardless of which type of broadcast platform you're using, a private service or going through a third-party service like YouTube or Facebook or Zoom. The second is how do you want to monetize this? Maybe you're not monetizing it. I know today this lecture is free, but I also know that there was a big Music Expo conference back in May that people paid to go to online. So there's lots of different ways that you can monetize your live stream through advertising, through promotions, through donations, and each of those has lots of different ways to effectuate that. It could be done through the platform that you're broadcasting on. I know Facebook and Instagram and some of the other platforms are working really hard to come up with ways to be able to directly monetize through donations, like right on the platform itself. Or you may basically put up a link and say you can make a donation to my live stream through Venmo or through PayPal or one of the other payment processing options. You can do in live stream advertising or sponsorships. You can get somebody to promote and you put their banner up behind you and they pay you to have that in there. You can certainly do that for the most part. And we'll talk about where there might be some limitations on advertising and promotion as far as monetizing your live stream. But I think a lot of us really like to do live streams just as a form of promotion for what's going on or for educational purposes. And we don't necessarily always monetize a live stream. But again, there are lots of options, and we'll also talk a little bit about the embedded options that come with the platform services. And then finally is content. This is the big one. This is both the content that you're creating, and it's also the rights that you might be using that belong to someone else, specifically music rights, and third-party licensing video content or reciting poetry, putting on a play of a book or a screenplay or a literary work that actually is in existence, and doing some type of a drama on your live stream that might be subject to rights. Music is a big one we'll be covering. And then we're going to kind of jump in here with the idea of your rights, what you're creating on your live stream, especially when you're using a platform service, and how those rights are affected and what you might be giving up by doing a live stream, especially on a platform like YouTube and Facebook Live. Not so much here on Zoom, where really it's just a discussion and then it's going to go away. This is obviously, I believe, being recorded. At least my end of it is being recorded. And then Music Expo is going to make that available on their website. Once they do that, then it becomes kind of a different beast. And we will talk about the difference between live stream and VOD, where you save the video for watching later. But right now, let's kind of jump in here and talk a little bit about the terms of service that you agree to when you live stream on a particular platform. And we are going to specifically look at the term called your content. And this is part of the Microsoft platform. So if you use Mixer, this is what you're agreeing to if you broadcast live through Mixer or through any live option or saved VOD content option that is through a Microsoft service. So if you look at this term, the one thing that is going to stick out and that I think you need to take away, and I'll leave this up here for a minute so everybody can kind of peruse it, is that the content that you broadcast and that you live stream through the service is licensed to that service, and they can use it for many, many different ways. So once you put it on the service and it's there, and you broadcast through that service, the service and the users of that service are going to have some rights to your content. So to the extent that you don't want to publish something for copyright reasons, you want to maintain the work as unpublished because you're planning on doing something else with it, especially you that are music creators. If you have unreleased songs, you control the mechanical license to those songs prior to their publication, meaning nobody can do a cover or release the song before you if you're the songwriter until you say so. Once it's been released or published, then it's subject to anybody being able to do a cover version. If you play a song on a live stream before you want to release it, you may be publishing your work and now all of a sudden it's open for other people to do covers. Might not be a huge issue, but it's definitely something that you want to think about. And it's certainly something that lawyers think about. Other things that you might want to be concerned with is the fact that it says right here in the second period that your content may appear in demonstrations or materials that promote the service. So that promote Microsoft or Mixer, if that's the service that you're on, and that by live streaming on that service and allowing them to have your content, you may just be giving up some rights to your content. Let me take a second here to take a look at some of the chat just to make sure that we're doing okay here. Okay, no, I saw one comment and I thought it was saying that we'd lost signal, but I see what we're saying now. We're in trouble by doing our live broadcast. No, we're totally fine. But this is to say that when you use a platform service, you are giving up some rights to the content that you create. You maintain ownership. They make that very clear. We do not claim ownership of your content, but you're giving them a license to use it. And oftentimes you're giving a license to the users of that service to also use it. Now, mostly we look at this in the context of it being able to be reposted or shared in that particular service. But we also see here that it can be manipulated, edited, and even used in some cases for promoting the Microsoft service that you are using. So this is some big issue to be aware of when you're live broadcasting and what service you choose to live broadcast through. And you may want to look at the terms of service. You should look at the terms of service to make sure you understand what you're giving up. I'll give you just the 10-cent pitch here is that they're all going to have similar language to this. So that's something definitely to be aware of. And it may give you an idea of what you actually want to put onto that service during your live stream. Again, the example that I gave is that you don't want to play a song for the very first time on a live stream and accidentally give up your first use mechanical license rights by publishing the song in advance of when you actually want to do that. So just a couple things to be careful with and to think about. And if you have any specific questions and you're worried about some content that you want to put out there, make sure you reach out to somebody that understands the law around this to get some counsel on that. Okay, so let's talk about clearing rights. There's lots of different things that you can utilize on your live stream that do not belong to you. And sometimes you're going to do that and you may have a right or a defense to copyright infringement. We're talking about copyright now. And in some instances, you may not have a right and you may be in violation of an intellectual property right, copyright, a trademark. Probably not a patent in this instance unless you held up the patent and showed everybody a copy of it. But here we're mainly talking about copyright and trademark and publicity rights. Okay, we mentioned that a little bit earlier in the advertising context. You don't want to use somebody or their product or service that in a way that makes it look like they're advertising or promoting what you're doing without their permission. That would be a violation of a trademark or possibly a publicity right. So I get asked this all, can I use logos? Can I put logos and things behind me? Only with permission. The use of logos and backgrounds could give the indication to the logo owner that you are utilizing their trademark to promote your live stream or your service. So you want to make sure at all times that you have permission to do that. It's not necessary in every instance when I say permission that you've got to come to someone like me and draft a big long document to utilize a trademark. It could be as simple as an email exchange saying, hey, I'm doing a live stream. Is it okay if I embed your logo on there since I'm doing the live stream in connection with your company or something like that? And oftentimes it can be a very, very simple exchange in order to get those rights. But if you don't do that, you risk that someone is going to feel that you were using their logo in a way that they don't want, and they can take legal action against you. So be very careful with that. Photos and videos that you want to use to tell a story as part of your live stream. Perhaps you put together like a clips or something like that. You need to be very careful. You need to have the rights of the copyright owner of those photos or videos if you did not create them yourself in order to broadcast those as part of your live stream. even if you just use a couple seconds, even if you are doing something with them that isn't generating any income. If you're doing a free live stream, you're still going to need to have those rights, and you can still suffer from having someone bring a copyright claim against you. And for those of you who have some background in copyright law, there is a statutory damages provision in the copyright law that would allow someone who felt that you were infringing on their copyright rights to sue you. And even if you weren't making any money or you were just doing it for fun, there's provisions within the copyright law that allow them to seek very high damages from you for that use. So be very, very careful with using content that you did not create as part of your live stream. It can definitely lead to problems, especially if someone isn't aware of what you were doing. Can you use underlying rights is what I'm getting at with like staging a play or creating fan fiction. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but in all cases you need to seek permission. I know for years Star Wars used to, and Lucasfilm was very cooperative with people creating fan fiction, and they said as long as you aren't making money and you let us know, we'll allow that. But their ideas on that have changed over time, especially with the acquisition from Disney. And so you need to be very careful with what you do. Just because you see that somebody may have done something in the past doesn't mean you can do it now. And recognize that if you stage a play online, or you do a dramatic work, or you recreate something that is already out there and created, and do something along those lines, even like a reading, you need to have the rights. If you don't, then you can certainly suffer from somebody filing a claim of copyright infringement against you. So be very careful with that. Questions, what about fair use? Fair use is a defense to copyright infringement. Basically, if you are criticizing and commenting on a work, if you are using it for educational purposes. So if I put a picture up here and I was talking about it and I didn't own the rights to the picture, I could claim fair use that I was using that picture for educational purposes. In doing so, you are still committing copyright infringement. You just have a defense to it. This is a really important distinction because oftentimes people will say, well, I have fair use, so I'm totally fine. You can still be sued even if you have a great fair use claim. You can still face legal action. You might not get sued. Maybe you get a demand letter. And so now you've got to respond to it and hire someone to do that. And it costs you money to deal with a legal complaint that falls somewhere short of actually having someone file a lawsuit against you. And fair use is just a defense. So you need to be very careful on your defense or on the use of fair use, and making sure that even though you've made an analysis and determined that you had a fair use defense, that you're still not using a property that someone would sue you about, even with your fair use defense. Okay, so I got a question here. The question is from Deshaun, and it says, so the creators of the Star Wars franchise can collect revenue from theme parks that use them as an attraction. So in this case here with Star Wars, Disney actually owns Star Wars, so they don't need to worry about collecting revenue or getting a license because they actually own the property itself. But if you remember, prior to Disney purchasing Star Wars, they had a couple of rides, Star Tours, and then they had a part-time of the year, they rebranded the Space Mountain as Star Wars Mountain or something like that. Lightspeed Mountain, something like that. Somebody knows, they can post it. In that case, they actually had a licensing agreement with Lucasfilm where there was some shared revenue for the use of the Star Wars properties at the Disney parks. But now, because Disney actually owns Star Wars, there doesn't need to be a licensing agreement, at least not in theory. They may still have one for taxation purposes because they're shifting money around within the organization itself. And some of the properties that are owned directly by Disney, like Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, they actually are operated independently. So they may still have an agreement, but this is to say that just looking at it from just an overall context, or looking at it just in a bubble, they would not need to have a license agreement because they own the property itself. But there are lots of instances or examples. I think with like Six Flags, they used to have a deal with Warner Brothers where they used the Bugs Bunny characters. And so there was a revenue share or licensing agreement that was in place there in order for them to do that. Okay, so what about public domain? That's another one. Public domain, basically copyrights are not, they don't last forever. Generally a work that was created after 1978 is good for the life of the author plus 70 years. So that means that there are lots and lots of works that you could do a dramatic or do something with as part of your live stream. The one that pops into my head is Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is in the public domain. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes, wrote the novels prior to 1923. And so those are all public domain. So you could do anything you wanted in a live stream characterizing Sherlock Holmes or coming up with some type of a fan fiction on that front. Or even reading the original Sherlock Holmes novel, just reading it out loud, and that would not violate any copyright. It would not, unlike fair use where you're actually violating the copyright law, but you have a defense to it. With public domain, it's actually not a copyright at all anymore. You can literally do whatever you want with it. Be very careful with public domain. There are websites out there that say, oh, here's all the list of works that are in the public domain, and it's not accurate. I've had clients get in trouble with that in the past where they thought they were using something that was in the public domain, but it was not in the public domain. And so you need to be very careful with making sure something is actually in the public domain. And then there's lots of works that are disputed. All the H.P. Lovecraft stuff, there's a lot of disputes over whether or not certain portions of the Lovecraft works are in the public domain or not in the public domain. And so be very careful with what you're selecting. And if you have any questions, make sure you seek legal counsel as to whether or not that particular material is actually in the public domain. Okay, got another question here. Are there limitations to using purchased Shutterstock or comparable royalty-free licensed footage for live streaming or even in a music video? There is a license that is going to come with your Shutterstock subscription or Getty Images or whoever you're licensing from that's going to tell you what you can use the particular work that you're licensing. It may be a straight up license with the rights provider like Shutterstock, where you sign an actual agreement and they say you can use our entire catalog for this particular purpose, or it may be more of an online thing, or sometimes there's lots of free sites as well where it's under a Creative Commons license. But you always have to look at what the license is to make sure that your use fits what the license is. There are a lot of people who make their works available for free through Shutterstock on a Creative Commons license, through Google Images under a Creative Commons license. But if you look at the particular Creative Commons license, it says you can't edit the work. So you would need to show the work in whole. This is usually with still images where you wouldn't be able to edit or do any manipulation to the image itself. Or the license may be restricted to non-commercial. So you can use it in your in anything that you're doing that's not generating income. But if you're going to monetize what you're doing, then all of a sudden now you've got to pay a licensing fee. And that gets into the nuances of what exactly is commercial and what is revenue generating. If you're asking for donations, is that revenue generating? So there's some gray area there that you would probably want to get some specific analysis on if you were going to go down that road. Other Creative Commons licenses are for any use, anytime, anywhere, any purpose, doesn't matter. You can use it any way you want to. So you need to be aware of that. Another quick question here from Richard. As a theater owner, can I use posters from shows that we created or were performed at the theater? If the posters were part of the promotion for an official for the particular performance, you probably can. If you license the rights to do a particular show at the theater, or if you hired a production company and the production company, theater production company is coming into your theater and like leasing your theater, they probably, as part of the licensing agreement with the playwright or the playwright's representative, have marketing and promotion rights, which would allow you to create those posters and use them. So it's more nuanced than a yes or no question, but probably, but still you're going to want to evaluate the license that is either secured directly by you or through whatever production company is renting out your theater in order to make sure that you can do that. If we're talking about music and it's a musician and a musician's coming in and you want to create a poster to help promote them, most likely you're going to be able to do that. Just make sure that the work that you're using to create the poster is not involving a third party's rights. So be careful with that. Okay. Let's talk about music licensing. Super important issue for live streams. Obviously, you have the potential to have both of the independent music copyrights involved in a live stream. There are two music copyrights for those of you who are not super familiar with music copyright law. There's a copyright in the underlying composition. This is the songwriting. There is a copyright that belongs to the songwriters. It's for the lyrics and melody of the composition of the written song. And then there's also a copyright in the sound recording of the song. So the actual physical embodiment of that composition. Now, many times, especially with a lot of you that are musicians, you're playing live on your live stream, you're not worrying about the sound recording because you're playing live. So you only are worrying about the musical composition. There are two potential rights that are connected to live streaming: performance rights always, and synchronization rights. We'll talk about when those come into play for both the composition and the sound recording. The performance right that is attached to the copyright is the right to actually perform the song for an audience, whether that performance be of a live version of your composition or whether that performance is playing the sound recording as part of your live stream. Synchronization rights is the right to couple the music, whether it be the composition or the sound recording, in an audiovisual work. A live stream probably does not in and of itself need a synchronization right. But if you're going to save your live stream as a VOD and post it onto a platform that allows you to save your live stream, then you're going to need to have a synchronization right. So just the live stream itself, probably only a performance right. The live stream saved and posted so somebody could watch it later on, say, YouTube or something like that, you're going to need a synchronization license for that as well. This is why, for those of you out there who have done live streams and then later, especially on Facebook, posted your live stream to your page and there's no sound, it's muted, and you get a note saying the music that's in your live stream is subject to copyright protection, and so we've muted it. This is why, because Facebook is likely going to hold a performance license. It's going to have a license with ASCAP, CSAC, BMI. But it's not going to have a synchronization license with the music publisher, which is an independently negotiated license. And so therefore, to do your live stream, no problem. But to save it, now you need that sync license. They don't have it, so they mute your audio. This will even happen if you are the songwriter. It'll be more likely to happen if you, say, used a recording of your backing tracks and then sang over that recording, because the robots that go through the different platforms will recognize the recorded composition more often than they will your live performance of your song. If you are a musician and you created the music, and you're frustrated because Facebook muted it, recognize that one of the reasons why they muted it is because you may have a licensing agreement over your sound recording or your compositions with a publishing company or with a record label. And that relationship gives the rights to control the music to those entities. And because of that, they stop the use of the music, even though you wrote the song and you recorded the song. In some instances, say with YouTube, you could dispute it and you can get it overturned by saying, hey, I'm the songwriter and I approve this. But right now with Facebook, there's no appeal process on that. And so your music is muted and you can't do anything about it. And I've had more than one client that has been very frustrated with that. Recognize that for performance rights online, okay, so to do a live stream, you need the performance rights. Your musical compositions performance rights are going to be owned by the songwriters or their publishers. You need this. This is necessary for any music that you use on your live stream, whether you're playing it live or you're playing a recorded version of the song. And then the licensing is done usually by the platform itself. So YouTube has an agreement with ASCAP BMI that allows for live music that's played live to collect royalties. So you don't have to get the license necessarily, but you need to be aware that there is a license in place, and that is through generally through YouTube, and a blanket license that they've secured. So what you need, the issue here is that if we played music here on Zoom may not hold that performance license, and they may have, face the consequences for that, and you may face the consequences for that, because ultimately you're the one posting it. But most of the platforms that are set up to host content like that, specifically the YouTubes, Facebooks, Twitch, Caffeine, all those places, they're gonna have this license, and you're gonna be able to do the live performance of the composition. On the sound recording side, sound recordings are owned by the record label or the distributor or aggregator that you're using. Again, this can cause problems if you don't have, or if that entity, that label, is unaware that you're doing a live stream, and you broadcast the backing tracks for your record. The robots may catch it, block it, and then you got to go to your record label and say, how come it was blocked? They said, oh, we didn't know it was you that was doing that. We thought it might have been anybody, or the robots just picked it up. And then you got to go through a whole process of trying to get that reversed. And it's a nightmare. Your sound recording rights are only necessary if you're going to actually be playing the recorded version of the song or backing tracks that are recorded. If you're just doing a live version, you and your guitar, you don't need to worry about sound recording rights. And licensings for sound recording are done through Sound Exchange or through a direct license with the rights holder. So oftentimes, as part of your user agreement with the particular service, one of the things that you're agreeing to is that you have the rights to your sound recordings, and that you are granting the platform the ability to utilize your sound recordings without having to pay you. That is one of the things that you might see in that terms of service, like we talked about earlier with the content issue. So the licensing for your sound recording royalties on the performance side, you may be waiving your right to collect that as part of the user agreement with the platform that you're signing up. On the songwriter side, with the compositions, the PROs are really strong. They won't allow that to be waived generally unless they're involved in that process. So you're going to collect if you're a songwriter. But on the sound recording side, you may be waiving your rights to collect those royalties as part of the terms of service that you're agreeing to. Deshaun asked, does this affect DJs? Absolutely. Again, if you're live streaming as a DJ, the platform is going to have the license covered on the composition side, but you may be ultimately responsible on the sound recording side. So you need to be very careful if you're a DJ on how you choose and what platform you choose, and to make sure that they are signed up with Sound Exchange and paying. Otherwise, if they're relying on you to provide the rights and you don't do so, that could be very problematic for you down the line. And again, a lot of these things aren't being enforced because this whole idea of live streaming music just really blew up once we went into the pandemic. And so a lot of these issues are being fleshed out now, especially around the sound recording side and licensing of performance rights. So you need to be very, very careful on this particular issue, and just keeping abreast of what's going on, and trying to use services that you know are more likely to already have the licensing in place and are paying through Sound Exchange. VOD. So if you're going to save your video, okay, so you did the live stream and now you're going to save it. Again, you have to make sure you have that synchronization license. Unlike the performance license, which is handled through either Sound Exchange on the sound recording side or your PRO, ASCAP, CSAC, BMI on the performance side, there you don't have to worry about the licensing so much and what the royalties are and any negotiations. It's all taken care of through the PRO on your behalf. But if you are saving it as a VOD, you have to specifically negotiate with the publisher or with the record label, if you're using the sound recording, a sync license, in the same way that you would negotiate if you were a film producer and you wanted to put a song, an original song, into your movie, and you needed to go get a sync license. So this is to say, saving VODs can be very expensive. Talking a little bit about YouTube and why that's such an attractive option for VOD is because they have a unique system in place that allows the owners of music to monetize any video that features their music in their favor, so that your video won't necessarily be taken down. It'll just be monetized in favor of the rights holder. So YouTube is doing it a little bit differently. Like I said, Facebook will mute it, and other platforms will simply take it down and send you a DMCA notice, a Digital Millennium Copyright Notice. So you need to be very careful with VODs, different because you have to have that performance license, which is kind of handled for you by your choice of platform. But the sync license you would need to secure independently in most instances, with the exception possibly being YouTube, where it might monetize for the rights owner, but your video would still stay up. Okay, so question. When you post an original song on YouTube, what royalty does that generate and how do you collect it? Other than BMI, is there anything else? So an original song on YouTube will just generate that performance royalty that's payable through BMI for you, Catherine, for your original song. You're not going to have a sync license. When you posted the song, as part of the terms and service, you waive your ability to negotiate a sync license for your original song with YouTube. So you give up that right, but you still get to collect the performance royalty through BMI. So it's a little bit nuanced, but with your original song, you will just get your songwriter royalty through BMI. And Jonathan asks, I've been working with artists to live stream engineer their sessions remotely. Basically a sound guy for live streams. Am I at fault if the artist breaks the licensing laws, and are there licenses that I need to hold for this service? So if you are responsible, Jonathan, of actually broadcasting, and so you're not using a platform to do the broadcast, you need to have an agreement with the artist saying who's going to be responsible for securing the performance licenses and for making that happen. And if you're planning on saving the VOD of that onto a service that is not a YouTube or that if you're going to save it, yourself, you need to make sure you also have a sync license. So be very careful with that. If you're using a platform service, then it's not going to be an issue because they're going to hold the license for you. But it would definitely be something you wanted if you were going to be actually hosting it yourself on a website, or if the artist was going to be hosting it themselves on their website. So not an embedded YouTube video, but actually hosting it on their website themselves. You would want to make sure that that was in your agreement with the artist as to whose responsibility it was to clear all rights. And then a follow-up, if an individual was to put on an online festival, do all the licensing faults fall on the festival? So again, if you're using a platform, the platform's going to hold the licenses. You're going to be probably okay there. You might want to just make sure that your particular platform has the licenses in place. But if you're going to be distributing it through your own independent platform, not using YouTube Live or something like that, then you need to make sure that you do secure a PRO license and get that license with the PROs. Okay. Privacy is another really big issue with online, especially if you're going to be collecting anything from the people that are utilizing or watching your service. So if part of what you're doing with the service is you want to collect people's email addresses and contact information so that you can let them know about future events or upcoming events, you need to make sure that you comply with privacy rights issues, because you are now collecting electronically personally identifying information. And I don't want to get too deep into this because it's a very complex subject, but you need to be very aware anytime that part of what you're doing is collecting information about the people that are watching, that you be very careful with how you do that. Again, if you use it like today, here we're on Zoom, right? I get to see everybody's name, and you're asking questions, and you're potentially giving personal information through the Zoom service. So Zoom has a privacy policy. I encourage you guys to look at it just to see what it says regarding what type of information they collect and how they use it. This would be the same for me. If my intent here today was to say, everybody send me your email address, and then I put that into a database and was using that, I would need to make sure that I maintain compliance with data privacy laws for the information that I am collecting directly from you. Different than if you were to, in the beginning I said, hey, check out Facebook or whatever for our law group or Instagram. There you are complying with that service's privacy policy, and I'm not taking that information directly. But if I asked you to send it to me, or if I directed you to my website and said submit information through the website, I would need to make sure that I treated your data in a particular way. This is the same thing as if we opened up this type of Zoom to live question and answer. We would then both myself with my firm Arc Law Group and Music Expo would need to be very careful with the type of information that was gathered and what we did with it, especially if we were going to VOD this live stream. So there's issues there. If you're going to do a live stream that involves third parties coming on and answering questions or participating, you need to make sure that you get a release agreement from them that says that you can use what they said. And then to the extent that they gave you anything that was personal as part of that, you need to make sure that you treat that in a very specific way, so that you don't get in any trouble with data privacy issues. Let's talk a little bit about monetization. Actually, let me get a question here from Anish. What's up, man? What if you're using Skype to live stream and performing on Twitch, separate from donations? Is there a sync and performance right? So Skype may not have performance licenses. I'm not sure if they're there. Twitch does. So, but again, if I'm the PRO, I'm looking to the service for the license. I'm not necessarily coming at the artist that broadcast on the service. Think about it like if you want to go old school to conceptualize a radio station, the artists that are playing on the radio station, that are the songs that the radio station are playing, if I'm a PRO, I'm not going to go after the artist because the radio station didn't have the license necessary to play the song. It's very rare that in a PRO complaint scenario that the PRO will go after the artist. They'll almost always go after the venue or the platform or the distributor or the radio station, the TV station that is supposed to hold the license. Usually if the artist is the one that's the target of the PRO complaint, it's for some other reason, maybe political. I saw it a couple of times in the context of tribute bands, where basically the estate of some famous person wants to try to stop a tribute band. And so they find out when a tribute band is playing at a particular venue that doesn't have a PRO license. And then instead of having the PRO go after the venue, they have the PRO go after the tribute band as a means to try to force them from performing by litigating them out of existence. So it's a dirty tactic, but to answer your question without getting too fun in my world of lovely legal issues that I like to read about, you probably don't need to worry about that, even if you're taking separate donations, because the licensing is going to be done through the platform. Okay, so how do you monetize and what are some issues to be aware of? So you can have advertising, you can have inline advertising and promotion, meaning the advertising and promotion is part of your live stream. You have an advertisement that you cut to as part of the actual live stream that you're doing, or you promote a service, talk about a particular company during your live stream. There's also service-based advertising. This is like when you get enough viewership on the platforms like YouTube or Twitch or something like that, and then they offer you the ability to monetize your stream and rev share because you are popular enough on that platform. So you can get service-based advertising where they're going to share some of the revenue that they derive off of their advertising. Subscription services, sponsorships. Again, you could sell merchandise through your platform, or you can accept donations. You can put up, your Venmo and go about it that way. Jumping back really quickly to advertising, again, look at the terms of service for the platform you're using. There may be restrictions on the type of advertising that you can put in line on your stream. For instance, if you are on a service like Mixer, where they're going to put ads in your live stream, so you're required basically to have your live stream available that they can drop an ad in there. Same thing with like YouTube, when you go to start the video or while you're watching the a VOD version, they'll drop ads in. They'll do this for live streams as well on some of the services, and you need to make your live stream available for that. And whether or not you have a rev share with them or not, depending upon your level of engagement, you're going to be precluded from putting your own advertising in your live stream. So you would not be allowed to go out and independently sell ad time on your live stream if you were broadcasting on many of the platforms that have their own advertising. There could be conflicts. There could be all kinds of problems that come from that. There are people that try to do this, and it becomes a big problem. Different than a sponsorship. You might still be able to do sponsorship. So you wear a hat from a company or you talk about a particular product as part of your live stream. That may not be a problem, but dropping an ad in that you basically sourced yourself, you got Frito-Lay to give you their ad and you're going to drop it directly into your live stream when you're broadcasting on a mixer or something like that, that could be very problematic and violate the terms of service. So watch out for that. That's kind of an advanced issue. Most of us right now are using live streams on the level of hoping that you get to a point where you're going to rev share with the platform or through donations. And quite honestly, most people are setting it up, especially with what's going on in the world currently, as donations to charities, which is great. And depending upon how you set it up, if there are ways that you can officially set up a relationship with a charity that will allow the donors to actually receive tax benefit from doing that. But that requires some additional stuff. But for those of you who are doing live streams, collecting money, and then independently donating that to a charity, that's awesome. And that's a fantastic way to utilize live stream and that donation process. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up to questions, and I think we've got like 5-6 minutes left. And if we stay a little bit over that, I'm sure that Music Expo isn't going to kill us. But let me ask here, Catherine, again, is there a way not to waive sync rights on YouTube, or is that just what happens on that platform? It's pretty much the way that platform operates, and most do, where it says that if you're, and we saw that that's basically what it's saying in that your content provision that we looked at earlier, saying anything that's yours that you put onto the platform, you are waiving the right for you to charge a fee for the platform to use it, and that you have the rights to it. So if you had somebody else that was a content creator with you and they didn't agree that you could put it on the service, you might be in even more trouble than just with YouTube or with whatever platform it is, Mixer. So, but you are giving that right away. The reason why you still collect your performing rights is because the PROs are really strong. And when you sign up with a PRO, you're giving the PRO legally the right to collect that money. So you can't waive that through your agreement with the terms of service of the platform. And the PROs get to still go collect that money. But with all your other revenue streams, whether it be performance on the master side or with your sync rights, you're generally giving that up when you post the video. There are some limited cases if you're a massive superstar where your label is going to negotiate that with you and get revenue on that end from a platform like a YouTube or something on the VOD side, but not always. And again, remember, you don't need a sync to do a live stream. A live stream is only based on performance, so you don't have to worry too much about the sync side for a live stream. There's me again, and there's my thank you to the Music Expo people.
Mark, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And my email, if anybody wants to email me, is mark@arclg.com. So you can always send me an email to follow up. And I encourage you I respond if people post on Instagram or Facebook. So feel free to add me on those platforms. Oh, right on, Hannah. Thank you. That's my email there. And I encourage anybody that has any questions, feel free to reach out. I like talking to people about their music issues. I get really excited about this stuff in kind of a nerdy way. But it's really cool that you guys are all here and thinking about this. And really, I think, some of the key takeaways is just to make sure that everything that you put out on your platform, you have the rights to do that. And secondly, be aware of what your work that you put on there might be able to be used for and what rights you're giving up And again, it's not necessarily going to change your mind about doing the broadcast, but it will help you recognize why, oh, how come I'm not getting paid for this particular use when I'm doing it over a platform, but this use I do get paid for. It'll kind of help you, wrap your head around that so you don't drive yourself crazy wondering why sometimes you get money and sometimes you don't. It really has to do with that terms of service and the certain types of rights that you're giving up, and the fact that the one thing that you're not going to be giving up is your PRO money, because you've given the right to the PR to collect that, and they're not going to waive that right. They're always going to make the platform pay that.
Lots of shout outs, Mark, for the session. Very insightful. Also, as a lawyer, and now we know you always have a bit of humor. So thank you so much for bringing always the positive spirit. Please, you know how the drill. To thank our presenters, we like to drop a one or a clap or a smiley or whatever. So please go ahead. Want to see a couple of ones. I see some claps.
Right on. Thank you, guys.
Some thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Yeah, so make sure to feel free to follow up. You have Mark's email. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on Instagram. Always share a lot of good stuff. And
I hope we get to see each other in person, all of us.
Yeah, eventually.
Right?
Eventually. But yeah, please stay in touch. And Mark, thank you so much. If there's, it looks like we're done with the questions, so we're right on time.
Right on.
It's perfect.
Right on. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys.